Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the RotoWire After Dark Champions League show. We are here to discuss Tuesday, December 10th, DraftKings Champions League 7-game slate at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Jack Burkart. You can find me on Twitter at Jack Burkart. And folks, no Ryan today. It's been a bit of a rough week in DFS, I think, for both of us. And so he's gone to Arizona to do a silent desert retreat in order to bring the good vibes back. And whenever Ryan and I were struggling, we have to bring our friend Mo Hendy onto the show to bring the good vibes back. Mo, man, welcome back to the show. It's always good to have you on. Crazy showdown. Was it that crazy? It was just really annoying, like a couple things that happened this afternoon between West Ham and Wolves. But I think you chopped a ticket, right? So not so bad day for you.
I chopped my second consecutive ticket. No one runs better at chopping tickets. It's like why win it outright when you can have a full-on sweat again after winning it once, and so that's what I've signed myself up for again. It was an interesting showdown. I think I've been on a streak of fading the goalkeepers, and that's paid off for me. I immediately, as soon as the slate opened, you had a lot of people who went Johnston because he fit with Emerson and in a very popular construction. And then you had a lot of people who went Fabianski because Wolves are currently the most down bad team in the EPL. And so that was a big scare. And thankfully, neither of them really pushed through. I think Fabianski recovered enough, but neither of them smashed on the slate. And they allowed other constructions to rise up, and mine was one of them. I don't know what the main winning score was, but I think for the king of the pitch, it was around 96.41. They actually only just paid it out now because they were still playing with the stats, but it was around 96.1 in king of the pitch.
Yeah, a bit of a weird slate. You had to fade Kuna, which felt more like a large GPP move, but I think some people did that in smaller contests. Well, this isn't a showdown show, but goalkeepers have been really chalky lately, like extra so. I think the pricing has forced people into that. And so it provides people opportunities. Early on, I used to play a lot of goalkeepers in showdown just because I thought they were underplayed. It might be a situation where in some contests they're underplayed. So, I'm out here playing Nelson Semedo for 400 cheaper and just hoping he doesn't get 2 yellow cards or something like that. But I don't know. That's how showdown is, Mo. You live and die by the goalkeeper, more or less.
I did the same as you. And look, I mean, there's many slates where I've played goalkeeper and felt great about it. I think I was the only one who played Vicario on a Tottenham slate earlier this year and just absolutely cleared it when he had a smash game. It can draw you in and tempt you too many times. And I've had many bad streaks playing goalkeeper because the reality is you see that he gets a 2-point bonus for every save. And you're like, man, this is a money machine. And then he concedes a goal like Johnston did today. And you're like, okay, well, now the script isn't in my favor. Now I'm stuck at 2 points. Now Semedo and just every other player is going to rack up peripherals while I'm watching everyone pass me by. So always a scary play, high upside, high risk.
Yeah, I think my view on goalkeepers, I want to be the only person playing goalkeeper, or I just want to be off it. This happens too in shorter slates and interleague stuff. The really favored goalkeeper gets super owned. I think one of my best runs in DFS ever was during the Gold Cup, Mo, back in summer of 2023. And everyone's jamming the Canadian goalkeeper against Guadalupe. And I'm like, no, man, Guadalupe's good. They got League 2 guys on that team. And I don't know, sometimes when the goalkeeper gets over-owned, it's just a game theory advantage, I think. So I'm willing to suffer that a little bit, but man, it is frustrating. And you know what else is frustrating, Mo? The pricing on Tuesday's DraftKings slate. So we should talk about. We have 7 games. Thank you. I'm a professional. We have 7 matches, but 2 of them matter a lot. And the biggest favorite, Mo, Bayern Munich away to Shakhtar, 84% win odds and a 2.56 implied goal total, 50% clean sheet chance. So a real smash spot for Bayern Munich. And if you scroll up, you're going to see, okay, a lot of Bayern's players are missing. So Harry Kane's not going to be available. Serge Gnabry's not going to be available. Kingsley Coman's not going to be available. You're like, all right, well, what? Everyone on Bayern's going to be over 10K. Let me read you off the prices for the Bayern game ball. Leroy Sané, who's been playing 90 minutes lately, forward eligible, 7,000. Thomas Muller, 6,900. Jamal Musiala, the Slate's most likely goal scorer, or second most likely goal scorer, 7,300. Joshua Kimmich, 6,800 on a monopoly of set pieces. And Michael Olise, who was like 11,000 in Premier League, is now 6,500. Well, it just seems like Bayern's way too cheap, and we're going to have to deal with that. That's going to be the main question. Every single thing we do, we have to compare. Well, I could just play Bayern instead. So I haven't even talked about any of the other matchups, but how do you feel about a heavily rotated Bayern in this spot?
Yeah, I definitely agree with your kind of position that it's all the favorites are priced way too low. PSG have a little bit of this problem as well, although their pricing is a little bit higher in some respects. And the tricky thing is that this Bayern team without Kane, I think there's going to be some interesting decisions to make. Mueller played like 51 minutes this weekend, and it's clear the manager doesn't think of him as a spry young attacker anymore. I think he might actually be older than Company. If not, he's at least like near the same age. But he's not expensive. He's not cheap. He's 6,900. So he could easily sink you. He could easily win it for you if he scores twice. So that'll be a tough decision. And then there'll be some difficult decisions as to what we see in the lineup, because Guerrero, I think, always gets projected to play. And then every slate, it feels he ends up getting dropped out of the lineup. And so, that might cause a bit of a shift as well. So generally speaking, I think it is way too cheap, but the rotation will play a big role in what lineups we see.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Mo. And look, it doesn't feel great to play Thomas Muller on the road at 6,900 these days. I don't know. I just get concerned when you see a heavily rotated side like this. I know that, the sharp people that put a lot of money to sculpt these lines, they know that there's a lot of rotation and can adjust, but I just think it's a tough thing to quantify overall. The other big matchup, although the prices aren't nearly as good, but they're still kind of good, is PSG. They're away to Austria against Red Bull Salzburg. You got Bradley Barcola. I think he is the Slate's most likely goal scorer. Yes, at 8,200. He's been in good form in France. Well, you're the France whisperer, so you'll have to give us the whole lowdown here. We don't have Ousmane Dembele, so Kang and Lee will play around 70 minutes at 7,100. Joao Neves has been kind of attacking, I noticed, in game log 6,600. And then you have a $6,900 Achraf Hakimi. Well, I love playing Hakimi, but man, that price is steep without set pieces, and there's other good defenders to pay for. So what do you think about PSG in this spot?
Yeah, I like PSG, but you're going to have to make some very tough decisions. Generally, in Dembele's absence, Ramos has been starting a lot more again, and he's been on fire. I think he had like 4 shots on goal, maybe 5 shots on goal this weekend. Just everything getting funneled through him. And Barcola, who I thought would be like just, second coming of Mbappe for PSG, had 3 points, I believe, this weekend and got a 60-minute sub. Now that could be keeping him fresh for, Champions League, but you can see there's like a 4-game streak of not doing much. Certainly not doing enough to pay off his price. So I think those are going to be some tough decisions. And then there's some cheap PSG pieces that don't often hit, but sometimes do. Zaire Emery, I think, is 4K on this slate. And if he gets you an assist and a little bit of more, or even a goal, and you're really in a great spot. Of course, as we already said, what are you spending up on, if you take those cheap spots, because it's not Bayern when they're all around 7K. So promising options there, but again, no clear direction as to guys that you want to definitely lock in.
Yeah, I feel it's especially tough to play a Zaire Emery when midfield is the position that's really stacked. We have single position eligibility because DraftKings just rolls dice every day and decides what they want to do with position eligibility, which I kind of don't mind. I like that they change the game a little bit every single time. But yeah, it makes things hard, especially at midfield, but maybe opens things up at the forward position a little bit more. Well, let's just round through the other matchups that we have on the cheat sheet, rotowire.com/soccer trial. You can do all your research for Champions League, at least most of it, through here. Sometimes you have to go to, the non-top 5 leagues elsewhere. But we have a PSV. They are road favorites to Brest. Mo, PSV have been a team that disappointed in a smash spot very recently against Shakhtar. I think I was cursing Johan Bakayoko's name. Oh, Mo, this was really tilting because Malik Tillman came in cash and got a brace in the last 5 minutes. Absolutely ruined my day. No one runs worse. We have Bayer Leverkusen. They are home favorites to Inter Milan, but Mo, I think Inter Milan are a team that squeezes the most out of the talent that they have. So, that's not going to be a smash spot necessarily for Bayer. Really good defensive team. Really low prices on the Sporting Lisbon versus Bruges game. I'm not really interested in anyone in the Atalanta Real Madrid game. That game is about a toss-up. That's how down bad Real Madrid are lately. And then a few cheap pieces on RB Leipzig. I will never play Aston Villa unless it's Emmy on a Champions League slate. Mo, for the other 5 matches, did you see any? What jumped off the page to you?
10.2 Noah Lang jumped off the page for me.
Cheap.
There's just, I always look at some of these prices and I'm like, I kind of see how the algorithm works, but I also think what the heck is used to generate some of these prices. So it's going to be tough. I mean, you look at the implied goals and you see that once you go down below PSG, you're dropping down about 0.7 in implied goals, meaning that, at least as far as the bookmakers go, they see those players scoring a lot less. And so that makes it tough. And as we were kind of discussing before we got online, Bayer Leverkusen and Inter Milan have a lot of players that historically you like to kind of round out your lineup with a lot of set pieces, good reliable floors, but they're kind of equally likely to suck the floor out of each other's kind of game, making them not as lucrative, especially since they're not really very discounted relative to the other options. So the short answer is I think there's a lot of people who might be interesting and will certainly allow you to get different, and we'll highlight some of those as we go along. But I really can't say that any of these matchups stand out to me as I'm going to go and get more than one piece from this game and it'll really put me ahead of the field.
Yeah, I don't really see that. And if there's one game, Mo, for me that has a stat just because of price only, maybe it would be this Lisbon Bruges game. I mean, Gyökeres is 9K. I have to tout him just because Ryan's not here, but I mean, an amazing center forward, right? But there's a lot of cheap players. You have Marcus Edwards, Tottenham Hotspur legend, 5,800. He might start. Trincao, 5,200 might start. And so those two are forward eligible, where it's easier to play cheap forwards on this slate because you just have to fade Thomas Muller. And then on the Bruges side, you have Ziolis, who's absolutely screwed me on some of these Euro qualifier slates before, Ferran Jutgla. So I don't know. It seems like there's a few. I'm interested in finding a cheap one-off forward in these other spots, and I think you basically highlighted it perfectly. We're not going to be playing 3 players from RB Leipzig. Maybe you pay 4,600 Benjamin Šeško because you're just giving up way too much cheap Bayern equity, it feels like, outside of the largest GPPs.
Yeah. One player, I'm gonna shout him out now, that I'm super interested in, is going to be Sudakov for Shakhtar. He's at 3,900 for this. He is their main attacking player. I read recently that he's linked with Spurs. I apologize to him in advance. And he's just an interesting play, particularly if you're going to find yourself already invested in a lot of the players in this game. And the interesting thing about Shakhtar is it seems like every slate they are projected to be just the worst beaten down team on the slate. I mean, you see here they're projected for 0.3 less goals than any other team. And yet I don't think they play like that. And I think especially at home, they could do something. I'm not saying they're going to go out and win this game. I'm not even saying they're going to go out and score 2 goals, but I also don't think they're going to get rolled over. And so that's going to be one area I think I'd take a look at as well.
Good stuff all around, Mo. Yeah, I mean, the Shakhtar team has shown a little bit of grit, especially against PSV. I mean, I can see how they can give up goals, but certainly won't be it won't be an easy matchup. I don't think it's a true home game for Shakhtar, given gestures, geopolitics, but still not a home game for Bayern Munich. Mo, let's start getting into the strategy. Talk about the forward position. We already talked about Leroy Sané and Thomas Muller. It's certainly an option just to click both at the start, given the matchup and just given what the odds say. Mo, I'm more likely just to play Leroy Sané than any of them. I think he's the most clickable forward that you have, just based on upside, reasonable floor, and you can't really complain about the price in this matchup. But I do think Thomas Muller is optional. You can go down to Trincao for set pieces at 5,200. I think that's fine, even though I do believe it's a road game. They're saying that Bruges has been smashing as well, so maybe we want to be a little bit careful there. But Mo, forward's kind of thin with plays. I feel like you might get to Thomas Muller by process of elimination as far as an optimal construction goes. But I don't know. If I played one scissor kick lineup, I think I would try to play someone from Lisbon or someone from Bruges. What do you think about the state of the forward position?
Yeah, Trincao's a good shout. I actually hadn't written him down on my list because I didn't realize that he had started taking sets. I think, yeah, you're gonna probably want to jam one Bayern forward, likely to be Sané, and then you're gonna have to make a decision on Mueller. And if you decide to pivot off of him, you have a lot of options that, again, don't really stand out but are interesting. So the man who hurt me last slate, and I certainly won't be playing him again. I don't forgive him, but he is still an interesting option. Lautaro is just 5,900. He's supposed to be one of the best forwards in the world. I think last season, I think I had like a blurb on the pod where I said he doesn't have a floor. There's no way he's getting 5 shots, and then he got like something like 7 shots. So naturally, I tried to make up for my mistake, and he did. He had like a terrible game. So he's an option. There are a lot of very cheap guys that aren't usually this cheap. So if you go to Leipzig, both of their strikers playing against Aston Villa, who are in pretty bad form. Sesko's 4,600. Openda is 6. Sesko, another one of those guys that we're contractually obligated to mention whenever Ryan isn't on the pod. But he's always live for just an absolutely beautiful banger goal. And then Openda is just quality. He's just really good and can give you a goal anytime. So they're playing at home against a struggling team. I think I have interest in both of them as options as well.
Yeah, good shouts all around. I highlighted the Leipzig guys as well and the Lisbon guys. Well, I noticed that we're a little bit hesitant to talk about spend up options at forward. Now, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to break the bank and pay 10,200 for Noah Lang and maybe set pieces depending if Joey Veerman's there, but he doesn't play 90 minutes and that's a really brutal price anyways. But I mean, Johan Bakayoko is 7,600 and he's a winger who, I don't know, I've been doing projections and his archetype just always projects really well. And I've been playing guys like him and Garnacho, and I always miss the goals, which is tragic. But those are the types of guys that when they score goals, they absolutely smash. And Bakayoko had a huge floor. So that's one name that I was interested in. But otherwise, it really was cheaper options, I think. I don't know. I think you might want more flexibility to spend up at midfield, given how strong it is overall. I mean, did anyone spend up? I guess Barcola would be the only one that would be the most expensive name I would consider. Are there any expensive options that you think are worth considering?
I mean, you already shouted out Gyökeres. I think that it's definitely not a cash play. Definitely not someone that you feel comfortable necessarily clicking, but he is there. He has the potential to smash. He is a worthwhile consideration as a spend up option. And then for me, Ramos. Ramos is somebody who I actually feel decent about clicking. He really is, in the absence of Dembele, I think the focal point of this offense, and they're not making you pay. I mean, they're not 8K isn't cheap, but on this slate, it's not a difficult price to get up to. It's a little weird, the goal scorer odds. I usually like them very much, but to say that Barcola is 55% and Ramos is only 46% is just completely not reflective of how the team is playing in the absence of Dembele. And so I might even just think of those, like flip them around or something.
Well, as someone who uses those odds to make projections, I don't really think much thought goes into these markets whatsoever. I think all DraftKings cares about is that the hold is like 20%. So just be careful when you're betting anytime goal scorer, folks. Even if Mo likes Gonçalo Ramos, it's such a ridiculous hold that it's very difficult to be consistently correct. Well, I think that was a pretty good breakdown of the forward position. So we can go into midfield, perhaps.
We left off one name, Jack, that I almost didn't mention.
Tell me.
Kevin's only 3.8.
Kevin. I remember playing one of these two gamers, and I didn't have any time, so it's like I just rolled in 5, and then I DM Ryan and you. I'm just like, I guess I'm playing Kevin. It turns out Kevin was the chalk because he was just a cheap option that you needed. Sometimes those 2-game slates, you just have to punt it forward.
I have no idea how Kevin plays, what foot he uses, who he is, what his nationality. I know nothing about him. I just know he's always like right at the bottom of the forward options at like 3.5 or 3.8. And so for all the listeners, don't take me seriously. I have no idea if Kevin is a play or not, but I do enjoy the fact that he is a running joke amongst the RotoWire soccer fam.
I guess I'll just play Kevin. Yeah, I like to think the listeners to the show exercise caution whenever we mention someone on who has a 5% win probability. Let's get into, now we can finally get into midfield. Again, the base names that you have to consider, just because they're all going to be good plays, come from Bayern. And so the names that jump off the page, Jamal Musiala, he was rotated over the weekend, so he should be ready to play a lot of minutes, especially with a lot of attackers out. He's 7,300. We have Joshua Kimmich, 6,800, set piece Monopoly. That's usually a name we feel like we can leave out, but sometimes Kimmich, he can shoot and create some chances. So it's a tough profile to fade. Mo, even if you think that Bayern are going to struggle a little bit, because that just might mean a little bit more siege and a little bit more set pieces. So that's one thing that I think about. Maybe that's big braining it too much. And then Michael Olise, I feel like I'm only going to get 70 minutes from Michael Olise, but at 6,500, I just don't care. I'll just take that to the bank. I know he's not the only creator for his team anymore, but I mean, man, he's still Michael Olise. Those are the midfielders that jump off the board. Mo, do you think that you would play all 3 of them in a sort of optimal construction, or are you considering leaving one off and looking somewhere else?
Yeah, honestly, I think playing all 3 is very tempting. I think they're all plays who, in a matchup like this, should have solid floors. Ever since I scolded Kimmich for his abysmal output against Barcelona, he's really turned it around. And so, that's that's something that I'm willing to invest in, especially in a matchup.
It's good to see he's listening to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he cares deeply about my opinion, and so it's unsurprising to see this turnaround in form for him. But I think they all have good floors, and I like the matchup for them. So yeah, it's absolutely doable to go that way. And I think I actually wrote like the fewest pivots here in terms of like things like options that I might consider. So one is actually staying with the Bayern theme. They have Pavlovic at just 3.3. He no longer has sets. He no longer has a crazy manager who, for some reason, thinks he should be taking sets over Kimmich. But he still has a role that at any given time can create a goal or an assist. And at 3.3, that's incredible value. And then to really get other options, you got to go elsewhere. So I already mentioned Sudakov. I already mentioned Zaire Emery. Baumgartner for Leipzig is one who's 4.3 and who always, I mean, I just remember from the Euros, he was just always a goal threat. And so he's one. Hakan is 6.5. That's really hard to click. And I really don't see myself going there, but he always has a penalty in him. So yeah, I would just say there are options, but they're not particularly appealing, especially when the Bayern options you laid out are so cheap and so good.
Yeah, and it does just feel like the place to get different is forward, and there's enough teams that you can build. A couple names seemed interesting to me. Nathan Tella, 5.1K at midfield only. He might start in a more forward role because there's some injuries at Leverkusen. So not the best matchup necessarily, but we do like how Leverkusen can play in a more fantasy friendly way overall. I circled Baumgartner. I saw on his RotoWire player page, the floor hasn't been good, but an attacking player, someone who can supply a goal. Liga MX legend Maxi Arujo, 5,100. He's also been taking a couple set pieces for Lisbon, but just for listeners, I want to double check. And Lisbon Tate has a lot of different set piece combinations, so I want to sit down and make sure I can project that situation correctly. But he's only 5,100. Mo, as I talk all these out loud, it's really tough to get off the three Bayern plays that we've mentioned. Maybe one name that you can help with is Joao Neves at 6,600. Decent floor stats, and I know he's a really talented player. When I learned about him in the Euros, Ryan's like, yeah, Jack, he's a $100 million player. You just play him when he's cheap, and he busted his chalk. So with his type of role, he's not a guaranteed thing, but do you think he could live up to billing in a pretty good matchup? It's not an unreasonable price tag to pay off.
So PSG do this thing where they buy really good midfielders who are dynamic and have like great abilities on both sides of the ball. And they just turn them into like the flattest, most boring players there are. Fabian Ruiz, who was just an absolute all-star for Spain this summer, has like the most boring, like uneventful role for PSG. And I honestly see Neves kind of similar. Now, his game logs are good. You can see he has a pretty consistent floor here. So it is interesting. I will say that, Kangin Lee, in the absence of Dembele at 7,100 midfield only, someone who I think I might have more interest in, because outside of Asensio, I don't really know who comes on to take his spot. And so, I do think a sub is still likely, but I just think the upside is really high and at a reasonable price. So in the Neves versus Kangin Lee debate, I think I'm on the Lee side, but could definitely be wrong.
Just trying to find some places to be different that actually make sense and aren't just like stupid boneheaded plays. Like I'm like, okay, maybe I have a midfielder who shoots on PSG, who's the second best spot overall. Feels like a good place to look, as does playing a major set piece taker in that spot. Set pieces, folks, as we know, how many years into this program, are very much free points. I mean, Mo, are there any other midfielders you have to get off your chest? I just wrote down a bunch, and it's like it all kind of feels skeptical. Like Florian Wirtz is 9,800. He helped win me 7,500, so I like him very much, and I think I'm going to ignore him in this spot. It's just it's too expensive. But maybe there's some contrarian value in that in the largest tournaments. I don't know. Maybe there's other spots to get different though. Any other names worth mentioning?
Yeah, I like the Wirtz. I like the Wirtz mention. I don't think I'll play him, but he always is able to smash a slate. Um, One player, I don't think I'm going to play him, but I think it's just worth mentioning. Antonio Nusa for Leipzig is supposed to be the next big thing. He's like 19 years old. People are already calling him like the next Xavi Simons. And so he hasn't taken over sets or anything, but he's starting to score. He's starting to make a difference. Ultimately, I have almost no interest in playing him. But there are, I think, a few options to get different, but ultimately not the place I'm likely to get different.
Yeah, I think I agree there. At least you're giving folks something good to watch on the Golazo show tomorrow when they're neglecting their day jobs. All right, let's swing into defender, Mo. And I think defender is actually the hardest position to nail down because we feel pretty good about what midfielders are good. We're kind of griping about, do I play old man Thomas Mueller or not? But, there's a couple reasonable plays around there. Defender is tricky. We have 6,900 Achraf Hakimi, who has a really good floor, and a defender who can absolutely blow up a slate, but he's priced like he needs set pieces. He sort of needs a goal and an assist to pay this off. You're comparing him to a $7,000 midfielder. You're comparing him to, he's basically a little bit cheaper than Jamal Musiala. So there's some sacrifice to bring in Achraf Hakimi, and there's other reasonable defender plays. On Bruges, you have Maxime de Kuiper, who takes most of the set pieces. He's 5,400. You have Alex Grimaldo at 6,000. I mean, I hate fading Grimaldo. I had my most embarrassing performance in DFS in the Euros, and I faded Grimaldo and just got absolutely slaughtered for it. Jeremy Frimpong, more of a GPP play. It's really tough to afford Hakimi, Mo, but I don't really want to play Grimaldo that much. I know he can get the set pieces. He's so active. It's just Inter is such a negative matchup. Maybe you just do it in cash. It just doesn't feel good in tournaments. De Kuiper, I guess, is an easy click as well. So the things I want to say, not much in the way of cheap defenders stood out to me. I have a gross play that I can mention, but I feel like you want to pick a couple expensive defenders, and it's hard to nail down which to choose. So how are you approaching the defender position?
Yeah, I do agree that it's a tough one, and I think you are more predisposed for the Hakimi play than I am. Although I really should be leaning more into it. At the end of the day, without Dembele, they're sorely lacking in offense, and I think it just puts more of the onus on him. And game logs surely reflect that. One thing I should mention is De Kuipers, I think, has been vultured off of his sets for the last 2 or 3 Champions League slates. I don't know how you're pronouncing it, Tizolis or Zolis, has taken 4 of the 5 in the last match day. And then before that, I don't think they had many. So it was 1 and 1. I don't know who this Jashari guy is, but he's taken some of the sets as well. So, I mean, that's just all echoing what you're saying, which is that it's a very tough position. I saw that Nuno took 2 sets last slate on the other side of Hakimi, but it doesn't seem to have been a pattern that then replicated in the League One games that followed. So it's not saving you too much. I think he's 5,500 on this slate. One that I should mention, I'm still I didn't really find many cheap fullbacks that were very interesting to me, but one that I should mention is Henrichs for Leipzig at right midfield is 3,900. And look, it's against Aston Villa. They're going to have the same effect as Inter, where they just reduce the floor points. But there's not many cheap options at defender unless you just want to go with a center back. And so you could certainly do a lot worse. I'll let you introduce our favorite RB Salzburg defender who occasionally has sets.
Yeah, and it wasn't even sets that I was thinking about. He's our favorite Bosnian, Amar Didic. Someone I played in Champions League before, so it compelled me to click the name. I guess the matchups have been kind of soft early on for Didic, but I noticed that he was able to rip 4 shots against Leverkusen. I don't know if that was late or if that was early, but a player who has registered reasonable floor numbers in his early stuff. He does occasionally take set pieces. I know he's very much an attacking player, and he's only 3,800. I don't like that it's against PSG, but I do know that PSG underwhelm every single time I play DFS. That's not a scientific take, but I mean, I don't think they're necessarily the most dominant team, but Salzburg also aren't very good. I don't know. Some constructions, especially if I want to just jam as much Bayern as possible, required a defender in this price range. And I thought, well, it would be fine to play Didic if Grimaldo's in a really tough matchup. You know, just doing the calculations, it seems like the defenders we want to play, there's all major downsides. So maybe it's okay to spend down for a guy who I feel okay can get me 6 or 7 points.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. It's really weird, in my opinion, that on a 7-game slate, I haven't really been able to identify a value fullback or value defender I really like. So I put that down to me. I think I just haven't like dug in enough. And once we get a little closer, we'll see somebody pop up. But, you know, I think that might be an edge, right? It might be an edge to find who that mystery fullback is that's really cheap, especially on these teams that are lesser owned, because I think the goal is a little different, right? Like, I think if you can find that person who is, I don't know, in the 3K range or whatever, it might give you 6 to 10 points. You know, that might open up everything else for you on the rest of the lineup. So I think your shouts make sense. I think Didic makes sense. I think Henriks is okay. I also think there might be scenarios where you can just jam 2 of, you know, Grimaldo, Hakimi, Nuno, Guerrero, and it works out fine. And I should say that if Guerrero plays, I have a lot of interest. Just basically an auxiliary, you know, right winger the whole time he's on the pitch. You know, hit or miss and whether he'll get there. But I think it would just be someone I'd be very interested in.
I mean, we want to jam in the guys who are going to be in that match. So if you're in that match and you have any sort of attacking pedigree, you're worth considering. So I do agree that Guerrero is a good shout. I think that takes care of most of the defender. I don't know. It's going to be a headache. Like if you're playing cash games, I don't know. Good luck to you. You're going to be like chasing your tail through this one. There's a few different combinations you can play, and you can also tweak your goalkeeper. Just not super clear, but it's probably going to be the place where there's the most differential. And I say good luck to you. It's been a tough go in cash for me the past 10 days. I checked my tracker, and I'm cashing in 25% of double ups like the last 10 days. And I don't think I'm that bad, Mo. You know, say what you will about New York values, but I don't think I'm that anti-competitive. So hopefully my luck turns around soon enough.
Wait, Jack, what if it's Fran Garcia? He's playing fullback for Real Madrid, 3,700. Atalanta. And he's usually far more attacking. The game logs don't love me with it, but I don't know. Maybe that's something I'll take a look at. I just remember him being a very attacking fullback. Granted, I haven't watched any Real Madrid this season, so could be fake news, could be interesting, worth including in your pool if you're trying to get different.
Well, you heard it on the RotoWire show. Mo says that you should do your own research on some of these fullbacks. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't really talked about this match, and it feels bad because, I know Real Madrid, most popular team in the world. I mean, they've kind of been struggling, and everyone's really expensive, and Atalanta are good as well. And Atalanta are also expensive. Like our heroes, De Ketelaere, Retegui, they've been priced up more appropriately now. I mean, Mbappe and Vinny Jr. are both really expensive. I'm not interested in Modric set pieces as much. I mean, I don't know. It's just a tough game to play overall. But maybe Fran Garcia is the skeleton key into that matchup.
Or Mendy if he doesn't start, only 2,900.
Ooh, Ferland Mendy. Oh man, he's definitely sunk me in a showdown slate before. Like after,
I feel like Ferland Mendy is like an experiment by DraftKings as to like how many times we can price a fullback sub 3,000 and just absolutely sink teams again and again. Because he's just the weirdest defender that like I think gets an assist or a goal once every 10 games and does nothing in the other 9. But sub 3,000.
You got to do it. Well, I think we should know Real Madrid's lineup in about 45 minutes. They like to post things nice and early out there. I am joking. You'll need to wait until 2.5 hours before kickoff, but you'll have plenty of time to check out the fullback plays there. Mo, we should talk about goalkeeper a little bit. You can do whatever you want because it's a 7-gamer. That's not particularly helpful. My strategy has been to play a goalkeeper that has nothing to do with the matchups that I'm in, because when I play fullbacks, I kind of like them to concede so that they they go forward. And I have so many options of goalkeepers, I don't feel like I have to embrace any weird joint negative correlated ceiling that could happen there. So I'm just going to be looking for relatively cheap guys. There's plenty of toss-up-ish matchups. So just lean a little bit cheaper. Like, guys like Jan Sommer are going to be a little bit underpriced at 4,300 compared to, Hardecki at 5K. But you can play whoever you want. Any goalkeepers stick out to you, Mo?
I mean, Jack, this is my spot, right? You've got the plucky underdog Shakhtar players playing pseudo at home. No, it's just look, there's no Harry Kane. The Bayern team is just going to absolutely mash shots at Shakhtar. I think it could be a really nice spot for Riznik, who had 15 saves last slate. I mean, this is where the DraftKings algorithm can't adjust for these things, and you just take advantage of it. I think I'm going to have a lot of interest there because I think it's Ryan will hate me for saying this, but it's the rare case where you correlate well with your forwards and midfielders, because if they're smashing shots and building up their floor and he's building up his saves, it all just works out, even if he eventually concedes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree. I mean, if Riznik is making saves, it's not like Shakhtar are going to have much possession in this game. And so it just means that Bayern are going to be shooting a lot. And what correlates well with shooting? Crosses and shots assisted. And if you're just playing a bunch of these Bayern guys, you're going to be getting a ton of floor points. All right, floor's good, Mo, but it's Champions League. Okay, but not many games project for a lot of goals on this particular slate. So I think it makes sense in this type of spot. And I think a lot of us suffered at the hands of Pew 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 in that Riznik slate when he was on pace to score like 40 points. It was going to be like the greatest goalkeeper performance in history. So you could just be like our friend Paul Villamazar and just auto click the cheapest option no matter what, and just have the best slate of your life once every month when the guy goes off. But it's not bad. I actually think it's a reasonable take.
We need to ask Pew if he's willing to do a bi-weekly 1 minute phone in for the goalkeeper section, and then we just ask him, is this where we slam the cheapest keeper? And just like the who wants to be a millionaire, he'll just answer immediately and then we'll hang up.
I think you could also just ask a magic 8-ball that that has everything that says yes.
Yeah,
I
so
do love
I think that's going to be my pick. I think you could do the same thing for what it's worth with PSG. I think the upside is less. I think they're going to have, more trouble creating chances, but maybe that means Salzburg have a better chance of pulling out a win. I think the same theory applies there.
No, I think I'm all in. I like this Riznik shout. I don't even know what goalkeeper was in my lineup. I just clicked one that fits, and I think it was the Brest goalkeeper. I always like playing the Brest goalkeeper because I just post the Beavis and Butthead gif. I'm glad I still haven't aged past ninth grade or whatever.
If you've gotten nothing else from the show, dear listeners, hopefully you've gotten a lot of good laughs, because I feel like we've gotten a lot of that.
Yeah, well, I think we're funny, Mo, but maybe the other users just want us to, bro, why aren't you talking more about Trinkhouse sets? We'll figure it out. And you can join us in RotoWire Discord, rotowire.com/chat. You have to be a subscriber, so please be a subscriber, rotowire.com/soccer trial. Best way to support the show is to be a sub. Otherwise, comment, like, subscribe. Thank you to Jamie, Poco Bear, and Regular Bear who were in the chat with us. Again, please share this. Please like it. Mo's ego really needs it. If we get enough likes, I bet he'll come in again tomorrow for a little bit more of that sweet dopamine. Good luck tomorrow, folks, and we will see you tomorrow. I'm sure everything will go great and we won't be tilting whatsoever. Good luck, everyone.